In T-minus 3, 2, 1, we begin the fun. Touring our way through the NBA from that big apple to the place by the bay. Is your mind buckled in? Because it's time to begin. Sekou and his friends are doing it again. The Hang Time Podcast is the spot, so sit back, relax, because the show's about to drop.
Welcome into another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. Sekou Smith here in Atlanta, sheltering in place actually in Marietta, Georgia, during the coronavirus pandemic. But that hasn't slowed us down here on the podcast, talking NBA, talking all things NBA. And today we talk G League, one of the hottest topics out there right now concerning the basketball world. And nobody better to talk about that with than the president of the G League, Shareef Abdur-Rahim. Everybody knows his name, knows his game, remembers him as an NBA player, an all-star, a gold medalist, and all that comes with that. Shareef, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, cool. I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good. First and foremost, how are you handling things now? How's everybody handling things on your end during this time? And we goes without saying that we hope everybody is safe and sound.
Yeah. Thank you, and thankfully, everyone is healthy and safe, and we're just kind of shelter in place and kind of staying out of the way.
Yeah.
But we're all safe and healthy, and I wish the same to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a strange time. I mean, such fantastic news in my eyes with the G League, with first Jalen Green's announcement, Isaiah Todd after him were the first two guys, high school All-Americans who have decided to join the G League, and what I think is a groundbreaking step for the game. I know that there's been a lot of talk in recent years about the NBA getting their hands on the talent at the grassroots level and having a more of a definitive hand in how that talent's developed. For you, having been in that same space as these guys, at the top of your class coming out of Wheeler High School, as you moved into the college ranks, what was most prescient on your list of things to do for these young guys in terms of making that kind of transition from high school directly to a professional realm?
It really is just to create an environment that's conducive to them getting better and learning and being challenged, but also have someone put their arm around them. That's most important. That we really take the time to create a place for them that they can grow and learn and start their journey as professionals.
I know how important, that process is for an 18, 19-year-old kid to move on to that next stage, whether it's college or whatever you're doing. What about your experiences going all the way from Wheeler High School here in suburban Atlanta to Cal for that freshman year of college, being immersed in not just the basketball program, but college life? What did you think, looking back at your experience, that was the most important component you have to be successful in making just that transition away from home and into a more adult space that you think that has to be applied for these guys making this step now from high school to the G League?
Yeah, I think the maturity, in a lot of cases from a talent standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, they could in a lot of ways stand up and be NBA players now, but from a maturity standpoint, they need a little extra time, and in that case, that's what we provide. I think in a day where they'll go straight to the NBA, the NBA teams will have to build up their infrastructure to be able to house that, right? But at this moment, the kid that wants to come to us and concentrate on basketball and think about his class work a little bit, we provide that for him.
You have such a unique blended experience, as a player coaching as an executive, working at the league office. I'm curious, what is the onus you think that's on the player and making that individual choice, but also on the player development component in the G League, and then in the future when these guys transition to that next level, when they get into the draft. And I know there may not have been that infrastructure you were talking about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Are all teams now equipped, NBA teams equipped with the kind of infrastructure needed to make that transition smoother for the players?
I think our teams are so much more sophisticated. Teams didn't have G League teams then. 26 of our teams have owned their own G League teams. Two more, so 28 teams are, where they operate the G League team. So our teams are so much more, sophisticated in everything that they do. And you see it. You see, young guys that come out and they, take a year, they spend time with the G League, and then they're off. Look up the next year, and they're off to the races.
Mm-hmm. It's such a unique thing too. I know that there's been a lot of data that you guys have done and compiled on. You can look at historically where guys rank in the high school class in a given year, how many of those guys percentage-wise, rise up the ranks and become NBA players. But it's such an inexact science. Like, you look back at the guys who were, the top players in your high school class, and how many of them made it, how many of them didn't. I mean, there's so many different variables. Not everybody ends up having the kind of career you had, where you play so many years, become an all-star, win gold medals. Is there a gamble in there for these kids that, there has to be some kind of understanding on their part that, hey, there's no guarantee that you end up being the player you think you might be when you make this decision. And there's no guarantees come draft time that after this year in the G League that you get the spots that you think you're entitled to. Like, do you feel like they're going into it with that understanding of how much of the responsibility is on the player to continue to work and get better as well?
They're so young. It wouldn't be fair to say that they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're eager to get better and excited to be a part of it. And then I think as a league, it's our job to try to figure out what are the backstops we want to have in place.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, the conversations y'all have had with the teams. It's an interesting dynamic when you got guys who are playing, professionals, grown men, and now they're going to have these young guys in the league and in competition with them. What's been the conversation and the dialogue about how you manage this process for everybody else that's going to be embracing these young guys and competing with them?
Well, we got to, I think, again, we got to make sure we can build the platform that we're saying that they can go out and compete and have an opportunity. We have to, choose right, pick the right young men. Like, it's not for everybody. Is the key.
And in that selection, I mean, as much as it is the players deciding to come to the G League, how much of it is the G League saying, come on, and how much of it is you maybe looking at a player and evaluating him and saying, hey, maybe this is not the right move for you? Where does the dividing line in terms of who makes that decision and whether or not y'all are willing to accept those players?
Yeah, well, look, we've been out, over the past 18 months. Well, Rod Strickland, former NBA great, has been out and evaluating players and educating families about our program. And, in some ways, folks tell you they need more information, they need more time, so he'll, just spend time with them. But, ultimately, I think we have, that group and kind of an internal group that's reviewing prospects. I think we have the right people looking at folks and getting the right idea about the young people that we want to take in the program.
Right. And is there? I mean, I guess does each season bring a different dynamic in terms of how many kids you might see make that leap, and maybe there's some years that are big, greater classes, maybe one year to another, more talent. I don't know. I'm curious. Can you put a cap on that from season to season, or does it always have to just be based on the talent available?
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's based on the talent, but I mean, there's a number. I think in this season, we wanted to start small with 4 to 5 young guys. I think that's possible, and then you want to scale it a little, but you want to be responsible in the way you do it. It's not. It really isn't about going out and getting all the players. It's more or less getting the right players.
What has been the reaction of the folks in the college basketball community? I know you know everybody. I know you have relationships around the basketball world. What's been that immediate reaction from folks in college basketball that are worried or curious that this might change the dynamic for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of what I've read, it shows that is like that there is some concern. I have friends that coach in college. I haven't heard it, directly from them, but I have seen some of the reports where folks are worried.
I guess in a bigger sense too. This is about the global basketball community. I mean, will this new rule allow international talent to come to the G League? Is this just I don't know if people know what the dynamics are. Is this just for American high school teenagers, or is this for any teenager that wants to come?
No, it's for the elite high schoolers that are tracking towards the NBA, and definitely not just for American kids. There's young kids in our academies. We have academies all around the world. Young kids in other places that want to start their NBA or their professional career in the G League, and we are an option. We welcome them as well.
Because we're in such a different time. I wonder. I'm curious what NBA veteran Shareef Abdur-Rahim would have thought about this if, say, this came up in 2002. If somebody presented this idea, you're a current player in the league. Do you like it? Do you love it? Are you apprehensive? What would have been that thought?
Look, I think the thing about it, that we all have to recognize is like it's not the G League, saying let's do this. It's really the kids, the young men that have said, okay, we're going to do this. So you've seen when you see young men get up and they'll go to Australia for the year, or you'll see someone take a gap year. That says to me that okay, I want a different route. I want to take different steps, right? So in that we have to be able to create platforms for these young men to succeed.
Interesting. Take me back to how long this has been in development. When did these conversations start about implementing this kind of change? Because this is not something that obviously anybody would do lightly. I mean, this is a serious change.
Yeah, we started back as far back as 2018, and I really say it came on the heels of the NCAA investigation, where we really started to get an outcry. You can say first from the basketball community, college basketball, but other luminaries that are connected to the game, that we should provide an alternate route. That young men should have, an option. And so far it's been good.
Yeah, I like that. I like too that because you wonder where the push comes from. I feel like there's so much more information available to players. At this stage, like you said, guys going overseas, going to Australia. I remember what I thought when Brandon Jennings went to Italy, and that was like, it seemed so foreign to me that a kid would go all the way to the other side of the world straight out of high school. I was like, I get going straight to the league, but
I think of me at 18, like there's no way I could have done that.
I mean, I would imagine it was tough for you going to Berkeley, let alone trying to go, to the other side of the world. But I just think, is there a way to continue to evolve with this as well? I mean, this is a huge change, but I would imagine there are going to be more changes to the basketball dynamic as we see the success or how these things turn out, how these players end up faring in this system. I mean, I guess there would be more, more changes and more of a different dynamic that we'll see in the basketball world as this continues.
I think so. I think this is in some way ushering in kind of a new way of play, new guard to have.
Mm-hmm. If we look back in a couple of years and say, you know what, this was a great idea, and now we expand this group and make this a large group, because I don't know, the G League, you would know better than me, but I know you're not going to give away secrets, but the G League could be getting larger at some point. Would that expand the pool of players? Obviously, if there are more opportunities in the G League that you guys would evaluate and consider for this process?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're considering everything, and I think there's opportunity to grow, and we want to continue to look at that. But I wouldn't make any rash assumptions, but we do want to keep growing.
Yeah. How big? And I know the team is going to be playing. They're going to be based out of LA. Am I correct?
We haven't decided that yet.
Haven't decided. Okay, I know it's been talked about.
Yeah, it's undecided. There's some rumors about that, but we haven't decided yet.
Okay. So how do you go about putting the staff together to work with this team in particular? Is it going to have to be a mix of people that are locked in on that grassroots level, maybe in different areas, as opposed to strictly professional coaches and folks that are working with them?
Yes, we're working through, putting our staff together. We have some good candidates,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is to give the young men a purview into and to NBA life, and start helping them develop and grow as NBA players. And that's in the drills they're doing and how they're studying the game. The terminologies, all of that. And, we think having the best staff possible will do that.
I love the idea of it too. And, you think back to your transition from college to the league, to be able to put together this kind of, basically a how-to process, from this side of it, from the league side of it, to me seems ingenious. I'm kind of scratching my head now as to why nobody thought of this sooner, because it will give you so many more, to me, guardrails in the process, in terms of you don't have to worry about guessing what is expected of you as a player when you have an internal body that can really teach you, like you said, really pouring into these young guys exactly what they'll need to know to survive as they continue to progress in their careers. I would imagine, as a player, former player and player of your stature, that's got to feel good too, to be able to impact the game from the inside at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see the opportunity we have to be impactful, to see the opportunity we have to help young men reach their dreams, to also be able to provide them with some important tools that I think will be important for them beyond just basketball is exciting.
Yeah, and I appreciate it again. G League President Shareef Abdur-Rahim here with us on the Hang Time Podcast. In closing, you mentioned something interesting, the fact that it's not just an on-the-court education for these young guys. I know people look at it and say, well, they're skipping college, so, as if they're not going to be educating themselves on how to manage themselves as adults. But this is interesting to me, is that they get an opportunity to really learn how to be pros, like you said, on and off the court without any limitations. Like there's going to be some truths that they find out in this next year, I would imagine, that they wouldn't have seen with a year on a college campus where everything is kind of set up for you and maybe a little bit softer, transition than it is to go right into the professional ranks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to your point. I think it's a good guardrail, and you kind of have it set up to welcome them in, and some of the things you do as a first year, you can make those mistakes, and nobody really holds those against you.
That's interesting. It's going to be fascinating to watch, and I think everybody is anxious to see the process, to watch these first guys take these steps. So I know you're going to be busy, and I'm glad we got you now on the front end before you get too caught up and don't have any time. So once again, thank you for joining us. Super informative stuff. I think a lot of people are curious about what all these announcements, being made about players who are joining the G League fresh out of high school. Shareef Abdur-Rahim, president of the G League. Thank you, sir.
Very cool. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Much appreciation for the time from the president of the NBA G League, Shareef Abdur-Rahim, joining us here on the Hang Time Podcast. I was trying to pull teeth there. I know they've got a lot going on with this transition for these high school players to the G League. And I want details. I know we all want to know all the details that are going to be involved with this process. But given the situation, I understand that they can't really divulge everything right now. But what a fascinating time for these young guys, for the G League, for the NBA, for the basketball world in general. Just watching another wrinkle to that process for American teenagers and really teenagers around the world at the academies he mentioned. Going to be a very interesting process to see how it unfolds at this level. Once again, here at the Hang Time Podcast, we're bringing you some of the best conversations we can with all of the movers and shakers in the basketball world during this coronavirus pandemic. For my producer, Anthony Bonaparte, and everybody here at the Hang Time Podcast. And again, for our guest, NBA G League President Shareef Abdur-Rahim, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This one is done, but in case you want another one, here's the links to all the fun from Sekou Smith's Hang Time Run. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, NBA.com/hangtime, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, Hoops fans.